So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be talking through how we're going to manage our businesses in some very tough times. And it is tough times indeed. So I'm going to get into the content. I'm going to be talking through the content quite quickly for the simple reason that there is a lot of it. And it's really important, I think, that we get through it in a manner that you can get a good overview on what you need to do to save your business, support your business, and prepare your business for growth after the lockdown, and more importantly, over the next 18 months that we will live through the corona economy. My name is Pavlo Phitidis. I'm one of the co-founders of Auric. And we are a business that really focuses only on ever doing one thing and serving one party, and that is you as a private business owner. We have a methodology that we use called building a business into an asset of value. We've had success with it here in South Africa, having worked with over 2,500 SMEs. For us, an SME is a business doing up to 300 million rands a year of annual revenue. And we've had clients and currently have clients in the United States and in the United Kingdom. And what's interesting is I can give you a lot of peace around one thing. All the apprehension that you're going through and all the stress and the strain that we're experiencing as business owners is universal. It's global. It's happening everywhere. And it's really important to not take anything personally. Because after having to live with 5-6 years of poor economic growth, after having to live, with Eskom over the last 3, 4, 5 years as well, this can feel like the last blow. And the picture on the screen is very, very deliberate. It's deliberate in the sense that Mike Tyson turned around and said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. When at the beginning of the year, we all started our businesses. We came back from the December holidays. We all had plans. We all had plans to get going and to get growing. And we have been smacked in the face, and we've been smacked in the face hard. The difference is the winners get up. If you lie on the ground and you accept defeat and you do not fight to hold on to what you've got, and you do not fight to get your business ready for after lockdown, and you do not fight to get through the next 18 months, well, then he's absolutely right. Everybody has a plan until they get smacked in the face. Most of his opponents failed and fell and did not get up after the first 3 rounds. Let us be different in this sense. So, the first thing, what lies ahead? You see that big storm cloud, and it is a significant storm cloud. It is a scary storm cloud indeed. That storm cloud is there for all of us. It's global. There are a couple of things that are going to determine how rough the ocean is about to get, for which we are all sailing our ships, our boats. The first thing is going to be, when will the vaccine come out? The vaccine is 18 months away. Combined with the vaccine, the number of people who get infected and recover from it create a herd immunity. So when the vaccine arrives and the herd immunity is such, it's highly likely that will be the end of the corona economy for us. However, between now and then, I think we need to expect rolling lockdowns depending on the extent to which health services can cope with people who fall ill. Plus, at the same time, in between the rolling lockdowns, an increasingly reshaped, redesigned method and way of working in life that will have significant pieces of social distancing included and involved into them. So, for example, the restaurant industry, which has been one of the hardest hit, without a doubt, or hair salons, or the casino sector, or the hospitality sector generally, the eventing industry, all very, very heavily hit. In the restaurant industry of the future, what does it mean? Does it mean that instead of having 150 tables in your restaurant, you might only have 50 tables because of social distancing? What does that mean to the profitability of your restaurant? What does it mean to your menu? What does it mean to the patrons that you will be targeting to get into your restaurant? We're going to be talking about 3 specific sectors or 3 businesses that will be hit. Those that are high-risk businesses, those that are medium-risk businesses, and those that are low-risk businesses. But this storm is there. The storm is not going anywhere. It's going to change shape, and it's going to change the future of our lives, I think, permanently. After the 18 months that we have been through, the new habits we would have developed, the new ways of working we would have developed, the new insights we would have gotten as a society and as business operating in society, I think will create some level of permanence before we go back to normality. So this all begins with you. And I think it's always important to have a really good sense of how you are thinking so that you can manage your own mindset. What I'm showing you on the slide now is the Kubler-Ross change curve. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was an American-Swiss psychologist who really committed her life to understanding what happens to people when they lose a loved one. How do people grieve? Because her argument was, if she could understand the grieving cycle, then it provides an opportunity to help people go through the process of grieving in a more sensitive, a more empathetic way, and in a way that gets them through to the other side of grief in its own right. So if we look at it, in the very beginning, a lot of us were in denial around the coronavirus. There are still some people who are in denial around the coronavirus. And I can give you a lot of comfort and peace around the strategy that South Africa has adopted. We've got clear leadership, we've got definitive leadership, we've got strong leadership around this. In the United States, the most developed economy in the world, there is a general lockdown, it's not compulsory, and certain governors in certain states have elected not to go the lockdown route. So it means that the United States has got a completely fragmented strategy to dealing with the corona fallout. We at least have got clear leadership, definitive leadership, but we have very, very difficult and unique conditions, specifically around township areas where being locked into home is not necessarily a pleasant experience at all. We're going to have a very, very uncertain and even lockdown period. So we start with denial, and denial says, no, surely not. How can this possibly be? If you look at it, it's a shock, it's denial, and the way to get this addressed is to communicate information. I think that our government has put up a very, very useful site. We should all be following it to understand the impact of the coronavirus on our nation, on our people. And slowly but surely, there's a lot of thought leadership that's emerging around how this will change. The reason that we've gone for lockdown is directly proportional to the extent that we have medical capabilities, services, and facilities available. In effect, what we're trying to do is slow down the corona infection. So we've been through denial, mostly as a nation. And I think as business owners, when the lockdown began, all of us very quickly realized that it is real, it is happening, and we went through a period of frustration. Frustration can find itself in anger and fear. What does this mean for me? How do I run my business if I can't trade? How do I engage with my team? What do I do with my landlord? What about SARS? What do I do with my people? I'm paying people, I can't get hold of them. They're at home. Are they being productive? I still have to carry the cost of this entire business. What do I do? And that frustration creates a lot of fear and anger. And if it's not properly resolved, it moves into a place of depression. And depression is where you feel completely disempowered. You almost feel as if this is truly an act of God, that it's faithful, that you weren't meant to succeed. And you personalize a lot of the circumstances that you might be feeling given the lockdown situation and the corona economy. But from there, out of sheer necessity mostly, people move into a place where they start to experiment, to find new ways of doing things. And the best way to find your path is by acting, because when you act, you empower yourself to choose a different way of doing things. And to choose a different way of doing things, the best way to do it is to take new actions in your business, lots and lots of small experimental steps. See if this can work or if that can work. And whatever seems to be working, then double down on that and do more and more and more of it, because that will show you the path out where you can make a clear decision that in the Corona economy, the way I need to change what I do in my business is this path, and that's a path I'm going with. And from there, you will emerge psychologically from the sheer shock of the Corona economy that it's had on us as business owners. So become familiar with the Kubler-Ross change curve, understand where you are in it, and understand how to manage yourself through denial, frustration, depression, experiment, decision, and integration. Also recognize this: as you emerge out of depression and you start experimenting and trying new things, sometimes those new things will fail. And the propensity of that failure is to pull you back into a depressive state. If you do not get control of yourself first, you cannot lead your team. If you do not get control of yourself first, you cannot negotiate with all your suppliers and all the customers that make up the force of what your business is. Recognize the Kubler-Ross curve and recognize that everyone you're negotiating with and everyone you're speaking to is equally going through that change curve in their own right. From there, we're going to move on to a 5-step Corona business battle plan. And there are 5 steps to it. The objective is to get to the other side of lockdown with some semblance of a business. But more importantly, if you do, and a lot of your competitors have not bothered, have simply taken a 3-week holiday, have simply taken their foot off the gas and said, well, there's nothing we can do over this period. What will be a fateful perspective. Then you, having acted over these 3 weeks, will find yourself in a very strong position, and hopefully one wherein which you can regain the losses you've made, but most importantly, lock and load for the growth over the next 18 months. The first thing we're going to talk about is getting money in. You need to get as much cash into the business and stop money going out the business, because that's called a reserve. And what the reserve does, the thicker the reserve you can build, the more you can withstand the shock. Think of it as a shock absorber in a motor vehicle. You're traveling, you suddenly hit a road, a pothole, something we're all used to in South Africa. If you've got good shock absorbers in your car, the car doesn't derail and go screaming off the road, and you're kept safe. You need a shock absorber to take the initial shock of having no revenue, no customers, no engagement, so that you can get to the other side of the pothole. We're going to be looking at how you build a reserve. From there, you want to optimize your business performance, and we'll talk about the engines. And for those of you that do work with Auric, we call these business systems. What business systems do is they reduce the cost of how you run your business, they give you control, and they give you information so you can see what is working and what is not working. There is nothing worse than driving down the road, hitting a bump or a pothole. You've got very, very little shock absorption in the business. So the car hits the road hard, and in doing so, it fractures a bracket or fractures the axle of the vehicle. You can carry on for a while, but that fracture actually breaks the entire vehicle in its own right. We're going to talk about systems, how you build systems, and why they are so important. Because if you can absorb the shock, then you need to have a very good sense of what's working in the business and what's not, in order for you to fix it fast. We'll talk about how you work with your team, your crew. It's important that you get productivity out of your team. You're currently holding on to them, you're paying them, and they are vital to help you through this period. But even more important, that once we're through this period, that they're on board to help you start the engines again. And then finally, we'll talk about what you should be spending your time on. So I want to get into 3 scenarios, because through no fault of anybody's out there, there is a red high-risk business environment, an amber risk, a medium-risk business environment, and a green, which is a very low-risk and in fact positive business environment. To give you a good example, in the red sector, we're talking, as I mentioned earlier, restaurants, casinos, hospitality, public transport, taxis, shuttles, Uber drivers, hair salons, nail bars, anything that is involved in the social economy that relies on people interacting with people in a retail type environment. In the amber areas, you've got, for example, you've got, for example, automotive mechanics. You've got, for example, some of the garages. You've got, for example, as well, probably some of the pet stores, people who supply foods for animals. They can't operate as they normally do, but they're allowed to operate. You have everybody in the industrial supply chain. So, for example, anyone who's selling into the mining sector, the mines have to either slow down, mothball, or continue to operate, depending on whether they're seen as an essential or non-essential service. So if you're in coal, if you're in iron ore, if you're in the major commodities, they have been classified as essential services. That would put you in the green bracket. If you are involved in supplying services to the uranium industry, which is non-essential, you will still have to supply the services because mines continue to operate, even though they are not operating for trade. They've got to maintain themselves and keep themselves capable of starting operations again. So it's an amber sector. If you are in food processing for delis and luxury food products, you can continue to operate, but at a far, far lower level, because mostly the only essential services are around supermarkets. So the trade that you would have done to bespoke delis or to hotel groups, et cetera, would have slowed down, but you can still continue to operate. So the business continues, but at a third or half of its level. If you're in the green sector, green is go, go, go. You are doing well, you're involved in hand sanitizers, you're involved in the pharmaceutical sector, you're involved in the distribution chain around food, from farms to distribution centers to food processing plants, all the way through to supermarkets. If you're supplying into the discoms, into the clinics, into the pharmacy environment, the medical fraternity, you're doing well from that point of view. The first one I want to talk about, however, is going to be the red sector, because many of us are there. Anybody involved in the event management industry, for example, knows this. People who do promotions at supermarkets and provide promotional capabilities, outbound promotions, know this. The advertising and marketing and creative sector have taken a big, big knock over this period. Organizations that are involved in training, I saw a couple of you were involved in the training industry. Well, you can't train in the normal way that you did. So those businesses are taking a lot of strain and are in trouble. The only objective over here is you must focus on saving what you have. Save what you have. And the most immediate action is centered around saving your business. It needs drastic measures. So the first thing you're going to do is get money in and cut your costs. And by getting your money in, any debtors that you have, you've got to get onto the phone. You've got to get them to pay. If you have to offer small discounts in order to get the money in immediately, you must do so. You've got to get the money in and you've got to hold on to that money. At the same time, you need to cut your costs. And cutting your costs means that you need to actually turn around and negotiate with the landlord, with your suppliers, ask for deeper discounts, ask for longer payment terms. With your landlord, ask for a rental holiday or a reduction in rent, and ask for one that is far more than you would anticipate. So not just for the month of April or the month of May, but actually for the next 3 months. Because post-lockdown, it's going to take time for the engines to kickstart again. If you're in the retail environment, people are going to be very nervous post-lockdown coming into the retail environment. If you're running nail bars, if you're running hair salons, if you're running clothing shops, in those types of environments, the world of retail is going to change dramatically. Because I think it's highly likely, even though we only have 9 people dead from the coronavirus in South Africa, that number is likely to change. And it's likely to change and move up and down. Well, it'll only move in one direction, and that's up. but the rate at which the death rates occur as a result of corona is going to be very dependent on the extent to which we have intermittent lockdowns and social distancing being applied. People are emotional creatures. We're going to be focusing on that death rate. And if that death rate climbs, which I expect it to climb, people are going to be very, very apprehensive and nervous about having food in a restaurant in the normal way that they did before, or coming into a hair salon as they might have before. You need to think very, very carefully around what your social distancing strategy is going to be in the retail space. So you need to get money in, you need to cut costs, collect aggressively from your supply, from your customers, but collect in a manner that maintains the relationship, but get the money in. You want to stop all costs that don't stop operations. And quite frankly, that's everything to do linked to a physical office. If you're in this economy and you're in the red category, you want to stop all money going out. We've run webinars on how to negotiate with your landlord. We've run webinars on how to negotiate with SARS. You need to get onto government websites and exploit all the opportunities that have been provided to you as business owners that would either see assistance and grants coming in, or the opportunity to negotiate effectively and halt and stop all grants at this point in time. All costs at this point in time. You know, negotiating with landlords is not so easy because we're not used to it. But here's the thing. The one thing that you cannot afford to do if you're in the red category of risk is pay rent in this month, next month, and the following month, when in doing so, you remove completely your shock absorber. Because if you remove that shock absorber, know this, there will be more economic shocks that follow on from the 17th of April. You need to keep a buffer because remember, going back to the objective over here, you want to save your business. And what I mean by that, you want to save the capability for you to start again. If you eliminate that capability now and you get rid of all the free cash that you have, how will you start again after the end of April? And that's where your thinking should be. So it's rent, tax, people costs must be stopped or cut. It's really hard stopping people costs. A lot of us have got teams that we are loyal to, teams that have been loyal to us. Without people, you cannot start the business again. So how you go about identifying who is important to help the business start again and who would be nice to have but not important is a very, very tough process. It's something that you need to do, and you need to make those decisions today if you have not already. You must act now and negotiate later. So for example, if you reach out to a supplier, if you reach out to a landlord, if you reach out to your telco provider and you're asking them for a payment holiday of some sort or another, and you don't get anybody coming back to you, then you must, as long as you've got evidence that you sent a letter, that you attempted to make contact on email, you gave your reasonings, you gave your arguments on email, as long as you have evidence for it, showing that you're negotiating in good faith, you then stop immediately. Because once you stop, people will then come back and make contact with you. Understand that you're not their only client. If you're dealing with the landlord, that landlord is dealing with many, many distressed businesses. Your telco, SARS, any of your suppliers, they're all in the same boat. But it's important that you here look after the ability to preserve your business. Write up the emails, send it out, send them out 2-3 times in the day, make phone calls, a number of phone calls. Leave WhatsApp messages, leave voicemail messages, leave LinkedIn messages. Show a very, very thick path of evidence that you're tempted to reach out and negotiate, but you're stopping payments in the moment. And you're doing so because you want to preserve your business to get to the other side of this. That's what good faith behavior is all about. Negotiation, when you're in the red category, cannot be where you put an argument forward and the party you're negotiating with says, I'll come back to you in a week. A week is way too long. You need to have answers within the hour. Okay, and I'm really hoping that you've digitized for communications. You know, the process of digitizing your business. By communications, I mean two types of communications. Communications to the market. Who of you can be reached by your customers? Who of you have put a plan in place for your customers to make contact with you, see how you are, and perhaps place orders? Because many businesses I've spoken to, very large businesses, have turned on and said, we cannot find or get access to our SME suppliers. And yet we require services. We require product. Where are they? They have not given us any means to communicate with them. So by communications, I'm talking about Zoom, exactly this format that we have here. I'm talking about email. I'm talking about websites. I'm talking about messages through LinkedIn, where you reach out to all your customers, especially the main buyers, see how they are, see how they are coping with their environments. Let them know how you are doing and how you are coping. You need those communications to show that you're still alive, you have a plan, you might be taking stress, you might be taking strain, but you are there and you are available for service should they require it. With your staff, how are you communicating with them? Have you set up WhatsApp groups? Have they got email capabilities? Have you enabled a process to be sure that you can speak with them, see how they are, see how they're doing? Because if you have to negotiate in order to cut costs, and I'll share with you 8 strategies you can with your staff to cut costs, you need to be able to reach them. Just because you're in trouble, it doesn't mean that the Labor Relations Act falls away. There's a particular process you have to follow. And if you don't have communications with your team, you equally are going to be in trouble. So for red businesses, high-risk businesses that are worried about surviving the next day, the next week, these are the main strategies that you need to be applying. Let's move on to amber businesses. So amber businesses mean that the lockdown doesn't kill you, but what it does do is it puts your business in a very, very scary predicament. Will you be able to survive and sustain your business is the question you're asking. So the immediate actions that you are going to deploy here, you're going to calmly and steadily secure your business. Because you don't have to act within the hour, and you have to act rather within 3 days or within the week, it gives you the opportunity to prepare a survival plan. And that survival plan equally must be to get money in and secure your loyal customers, the ones that have been with you for a long time. How many of you have reached out to them and said, hey, if we supply a product, our supply chain is compromised because China stopped manufacturing, Germany has stopped manufacturing, it's hard to get access to manufactured goods at this point in time. Do you have sufficient in your own business, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, before I go to market and start selling stock that I have to new customers? That message, where you go first to your current customers and demonstrate loyalty and commitment to them, making sure that they are okay first, is absolutely crucial in building loyalty. You will be remembered by what you do, not by what you say. If you say that and then follow through and do it and make sure that their businesses are safe, that loyalty is gold to help you get through to the other side of this. From there, you want to stop money out and you want to negotiate. Over here, you might not be asking for rental holidays. You might be asking for discounted rents. We did an entire webinar on this, and I would urge you to go and listen to it and look at it. We spoke about 6 different ways to negotiate with the landlord. Also, in these cases over here, reach out to your suppliers and say, we are still trading. It's likely that our trade will come down by 50%. Can you assure me that you have sufficient supply to support me at 50% of my levels for the next 3 months? The mere fact of doing that, the mere fact of establishing communication with your suppliers gives you a sense as to whether your suppliers will be able to reliably supply you or not. If not, you have to start sourcing alternative forms of supply. because you need to be able to keep your business churning over at maybe a third of its current rates, but consistently for the next 3 months until the lie of the land settles. You want to digitize for collaboration. And what I mean by that is this. So digitizing for collaboration means, do you have software to manage your accounting? And is your accounting package linked to your bank account? So you can reconcile your numbers quickly and you can get a good sense of what your risk looks like. A feel for risk and the real metrics, the real numbers in your business that show you whether money's coming in or not, what money is going out, how much money is left in at the end of each trading week, is absolutely crucial. If you have digitized your accounting through an accounting package, get it up to date, integrate it with the bank. You don't need to go and visit the bank to do this. All the banks can accommodate integrations into Xero, into Pastel, into QuickBooks, I believe as well. You need to have proper data over here. You need to have that data available, and again through collaboration, with whoever's doing the collections for you. If it's you yourself, that's fine. But if you've got a debtors clerk, that debtors clerk needs to get access and see immediately which customers are owing money and which customers aren't. And you need to be able to track and be sure that that money is coming through. Because if it's not, you need to pick up the phone to that customer, establish the risk of not collecting that money, and then increase your means of getting that money in. If it means offering a more aggressive discount, rather get some of the money in than none at all. You must enable social distancing strategies. This is the time to think about it. You've got time to sit down and say, well, I run a hair salon. My hair salon can normally accommodate 30 people at a time. Social distancing is going to be the norm after this. How will I create a place of safety and security for my clients, customers, and my staff? Does it mean that I will test everybody when they walk into the store? Does it mean that my staff will have to get new PPE equipment? Does it mean instead of me being able to accommodate 30 people because the proximity is too close, I might be able to only occupy every other workstation? Well, if that's the case, and that's my plan of action, then I know how I need to negotiate with my landlord. This is really a good time to think about a social distancing strategy for your business that will see you operate after the lockdown period. Depending on how you supply a service or product to your corporate clients, if you're in the business-to-business environment, look to see what you can do through changing your packaging to create safer packaging. We all now know that the coronavirus lives and lasts longer on a steel surface or hard plastic surface. It lasts far less on a paper surface or a wood surface. So maybe it might be something you do in your packaging, or maybe it might be a way that you notify your client you're ready to deliver the goods and services that they've looked for, and you're going to do so in a different way that you've identified will reduce the exposure of their staff to your staff and the packaging itself. These kinds of small incremental strategies can be the difference between you being a favored supplier as opposed to one that has no consideration of the new world we're living in. I saw recently one of our clients has gone and created Perspex shields, which they've now supplied to the cashiers at most of the pick and pay stores. And the Perspex shield creates a barrier between the cashier and the customer buying the goods. It's useful to prevent transmission of the virus through sneezing, through coughing, through breathing, through spitting when one talks. It protects the cashier and it protects the customer from the cashier, as it does the other way around. It's those small incremental changes that you must start thinking about now for when the economy opens up again, if not on the 17th of April, at the end of April, because we might have a slightly extended lockdown depending on what the infection rates are. You need to invest in prospecting and efficiency. And what I mean by that is this: your sales team are going to find it hard to sell during this period. So what are they doing? Now's the time that you should get them to start finding new customers you've never served before and building the databases. So for example, let's say you were supplying into the hotel sector, and let's say you were supplying what would be a good product? Serviettes, paper napkins, consumables of that sort. Well, in the meantime, that hotel sector shut down, as you well know. What is your team doing? Now would be a good time to build a database of boutique hotels or lodges or the small bed and breakfasts. Now would be a good time to look and start saying, well, who else can I supply? Are there conference centers that I've never supplied before? What about facilities management in the big corporates? Because when they come back and the economy starts again, who supplies the napkins, the salt, the pepper, the consumables into the big canteens in these big corporates? This is where you've got to start thinking with a different mindset. So you can get your sales team to build up a list of who all these new customers could be. And in that process, when the economy opens again, you can start to market to them and offer your services to spread and diversify your risk. Green is the easiest one. That's where you thrive. The immediate actions over here are to invest in your growth. What this means is you must understand how much capacity you have to service clients. Because if you go out there and you simply sell, and you have got stock, and you've got product, and you've got services that people want, but you don't have an ability to deliver on what you've sold, you're going to create opportunities for competition, and you will hurt your brand and reputation. Already, Woolworths cannot do home deliveries any longer. And I've watched this with a lot of interest, because some of the smaller food restaurant shops have turned themselves into food distribution centers, and they have started to target elderly stay-at-home couples who cannot, because of their age and vulnerability, go out to shopping centers, go out to supermarkets and stand in queues. So Woolworth's inability to deliver home deliveries has opened up new opportunities for competitors that they never had before in the home delivery market. It's really important before you put your foot on the gas and take advantage of your sheer luck that you are an essential service, you look and see what your capacity is to deliver. Over here, you must employ to increase that capacity. You can afford to. And once your capacity is increased, employ to double down and accelerate on sales. Invest in capacity and start looking for new customers everywhere. If you're in the green category, the thing you need to look out for is who of your competitors, for example, don't have access to stock any longer or can't get access to stock. Because if you're sitting with stock and they're not, and you're smart, you're going to be targeting their clients. And that's where you will get your new growth and your new customers from. Over here, you need to digitize for coordination. There is nothing that stalls a business more than when the sales team go out there and sell, and the delivery team, the installation teams, the production team does not know what's coming down that sales pipe, because they can't gear up to deliver and fulfill the promise that the sales teams have made to the clients that have bought products and services from you. It's a really good time to think about how to get that coordination right. And there are many different forms of digital technology you can use to improve that. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we're running a webinar on how you digitize your business from the front end to the back end in order to gain the efficiencies that I'm sharing and talking about over here. Guys, this is where you have to earn your rights to lead. And I'll explain what I mean by that. The last thing you ever want to negotiate in a business are your people. Your people power your business. Cutting people costs means that if you cut sufficiently and you cut deep enough, you might not have anything left to start with. The way that you earn your rights is you start negotiating with your suppliers that are fixed costs, like landlords, From there, you might move on to the banks. If you owe money to the bank, already some of them have given holidays, capital payment holidays on loans, personal loans, business loans. If it's not enough, you need to negotiate with them and say, instead of it being 3 months, I need 6 months. No bank nor landlord is going to call in any debt owed by any business in the next month, month and a half, 2-3 months. The reason for that is, if a landlord loses you as a tenant, it's going to take them between 3 to 5 years to replace you. If a bank loses you as a client, and you have been a good client in the past, well, they simply won't replace you. Telcos, a lot of you are using a lot of bandwidth at the moment. You're using a lot of technology in order to support the operations of your business. Go to your telcos, go to your telco provider to the extent that you can, negotiate improved rates. You need to speak to all your suppliers. The way to stop money going out and to get money in is, if you have been buying product on a COD basis, look for 15 days credit, 30 days credit, 60 days credit, 90 days credit. Trust me, your suppliers don't want to lose you as a client. They also don't want to lose money. When you negotiate with a supplier and you can communicate that you have a plan of action to get you to the other side of the lockdown, and on top of it, you've also thought about how to recreate a product and service for a social distancing economy, that conversation in its own right demonstrates that you have thought through your business. It says to me as a supplier to you, you're a good investment, and I will give you reprieve over the next 3 months if that's what you require, because I can see, A, you've got a plan, you've thought it through, you have negotiated with your landlords, you've negotiated with all your other fixed cost operators in the business, and you're coming to me almost as a last resort. Negotiate with your customers. We've already spoken about that. Negotiate to get money in harder, faster, and quicker. Even if you take some small knock-in margin, rather get cash in hand. And once you've done that, you can negotiate with SARS. SARS already has a whole lot of COVID-19 provisions. Get onto the website. They're very responsive. I've had good engagements with them to date. They already have given some reprieve on PAYE, but the 2 areas to negotiate would be PAYE payments. In other words, when you pay your staff, the PAYE portion, hold on to it, but only after you've negotiated and notified SARS that you intend to. SARS will want to understand what your business plan is, to survive, to thrive, and to lock and load for growth going down the future. SARS will want to know that you've negotiated with landlords, banks, telcos, suppliers, and customers. SARS are prepared to make a lot of concessions if they believe that you're a good investment and that the last people you're negotiating with are your employees. Nobody in the country can afford to have the unemployment rate increase dramatically and drastically. So reach out to SARS. Please look at the webinar that we created on how to negotiate with SARS. We also put letters in there, templates that you can use and that you can take and you use it as and how you want to notify SARS what you intend to do, how you intend to do it, and what you are asking for. They won't let you off tax, but what you can negotiate through discussion are deferred payments in tax. The other thing, you need to be compliant before you negotiate, because that demonstrates good bona fides, which means good faith, that you have been good, that you've been proper, that you're an upstanding citizen. From there, you negotiate your people. And when you negotiate your people, there are lots of different ways to do it. The first thing you need to understand is, what do short weeks look like? I saw that EOH, one of the big technology providers listed on the stock exchange, announced that they've gone to a 4-day week instead of a 5-day week. They consulted extensively with all their staff, and all the staff opted to go to a 4-day week as opposed to retrenchments. They looked out for each other, and through that, they have built a tremendous culture and belief in the future of that business. You can ask for half-time, but again, the process requires you to consult your teams and to say that in order to survive, we need to go to half-time. You can negotiate a reduction in pay for a period. There are many businesses that have instigated a 10%, 20%, 30% pay cut. but they've also had to go through a process of consultation. You can redeploy certain staff. If you can afford to keep your staff, but your sales teams can't go out on the road selling, if, for example, they are physical reps, redeploy them to build marketing campaigns for when the corona economy ends and we can get going again. You can also then retrench. And here's the reality. Retrenchment is costly. If you can't afford to retrench, you simply go ahead and do it, and you negotiate the terms by which those retrenchment packages will be paid. If you can't afford to simply pay up front for the retrenchment, 1 week in every year worked, well, then you negotiate that you pay it over 3 months or 6 months. I can assure you that the likelihood, if you have done this right, and you have communicated effectively with your staff, and you have showed them the condition of the business, you have shown them your battle plan, you have shown them that they are the last people you're negotiating with in order to save the business, sustain it so it can grow again post the lockdown or the next 3 months. I can assure you, you will probably find a lot of empathy coming your way. Everybody knows that when the economy takes a big punch like this and the business takes a big punch, in order to survive, in order to maintain opportunities for work, those teams are more likely to negotiate with you than they ever would have been before. Understand something, this is not a performance management opportunity either. You've got to follow the Labor Relations Act and you've got to follow due process. In certain cases, you might turn around to some of your staff and say, look, I cannot afford to keep you on board. For the service that you provide me, my bookkeeper, for example, I will become your first client, start a bookkeeping outsource service. So I can't keep you on as a permanent employee. Start your own business, take the package that we've got, supply me the service, and I'll pay you an hourly rate. And through that, I'll notify all my customers and all my suppliers that you have started a bookkeeping outsource service. Can you see, if you negotiate like that with your teams, they understand how tough things are, and everybody is scared of not earning income. But if you show this kind of negotiation, and the rest of your team understands that this is how you've treated everybody in the business, it earns you your rights to negotiate with your team. The next thing you can do is you need to think very carefully who is absolutely vital in the business. If those 3 people were to leave, would you still have a business? If those 15 people were not there, would you still have a business? That's how you decide who needs to stay and who would then need to go, depending on your ability to afford it. You must have a very structured approach that says, I need to get to the other side of lockdown first. Who do I need for that? After the lockdown, it's going to take 3 months for us to get going again. Who do I need for that? Once we've gotten going, who would be nice to have? So you're going to prioritize your people in 3 buckets. Make sure you get those buckets right. It's not about who you like. It's not about who you have loyalty to. It's about who matters to keep the business going, thriving and surviving so that you can grow again in the next year. Getting yourself ready for negotiation, it's a very, very emotional time for everybody. It's really important that you connect on a human level. This picture here is critical because you've got on the one side head. All we've spoken about is head, the logic, the strategy, the tactics, the plan of action that you're going to deploy to hold on to your business. But then you've got the heart as well. And if you connect with people on an emotional level first, people will be ready and able to hear what you have to say. If you simply go in there with head alone, I think you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot, and you're going to create a very, very bad culture and atmosphere in those that remain in your business. It's a rational argument. You must have a plan before you negotiate and communicate. You must demonstrate that you have thought it through inside out. And you must have demonstrated that your negotiation with whoever it is coming as a last resort. It's leadership time. You've got to prepare and you've got to be absolutely honest. Don't try and be tricky-dicky over here. If you have a landlord that gives you a concession, don't try and ask for more than what's been offered, because what's been offered is probably the best they can do. The only time you ask for more is if you have to. But if what you've been offered is enough to get you through the next 3 months, be gracious, take it, and don't try and ask for more. With your team, when you negotiate with your team, they will have ideas on how you can preserve and survive the business. Take those ideas, onboard the ideas, and demonstrate whether it would work or not work. It's important that you are honest with all communications over here. You've got to be creative. You know, I've done a number of turnarounds in my life, and I've always gone to 3 places to understand what a business needs to be fixed. The first has always been my team. When I buy that business that's in distress, I go and speak to everybody on the ground. I don't speak to the leaders that took the business into a place of distress. I speak to the managers, the supervisors, the people who've demonstrated that they've been there for some time. They've seen things that I would never have known otherwise before. I speak to my people and I ask them, saying, this is what I think we need to do in order to survive. What do you think? Let people be part of the solution by giving them voice. When you speak to your suppliers, ask them what they can do to help. Typically you're saying, look, I can't pay you this month. And that's it. You go to them and say, I'm struggling to pay this month. It's unlikely that I can pay you this month. I have a plan. Let me share it with you and tell me what you think. Do the same with your customers, because in those environments, there are lots of answers that you yourself, running your business on your own, don't have. Be objective driven. Remember, the first thing you're going to do is secure your business. You need to build a shock absorber that will last you at least 2-3 months of operating overhead. From there, you're going to reshape your business. And then from there, you're going to invest in your growth. So be clear what you're going in with. Be clear on where you are in that risk profile and be clear on what you need to come out with. Record all your engagements and discussions. Don't make decisions and not tell anybody if you're negotiating with them. In terms of your staff, every discussion must be recorded. In terms of the receiver, every discussion must be recorded. Let people know that you're recording discussions. Let people know that you're going to be taking notes. You must have evidence of consultation because that underpins any successful negotiation. And should you have to terminate work immediately for any of your staff, you must have the UIF forms ready and completed. Don't make people wait. Don't make people have to try and come to you to get a UIF form. If they don't have a means to get a UIF form digitally from you, don't make it hard. Remember, they are suffering as much as everyone else is out there. To suddenly be in a situation where you lose your job through no fault of your own, you lose your job because the business that employed you cannot survive, is a very, very tough place to be. A lot of people who find themselves unemployed as a result of this shutdown might well find themselves unemployed for the next 3 to 6 months too. Remember, you'll be measured by what you do and how you do it, not by your words. You need to turn talk into action. And that's why I say it's leadership time. Prepare your battle plan. Be clear on it. Negotiate openly, transparently, and with evidence. Record and communicate, because that shows your good faith bona fides. What is the government assistance out there? There is some. Some of it's more in words than in workability at the moment. SARS has got a website, so has the Department of Labor and the DTI. The Solidarity Fund has been established. All of them will have terms and conditions. I'm not going to use a webinar to tell you how all these things work when all that information is already available on the website. I wanted to use the webinar to talk to you about strategy and tactics. I wanted to use the webinar to perhaps be another voice in your head around what you need to do for your business. Everything that's available is specified on websites. And here's the thing. If you don't fit with any of their requirements in order to get some relief, move on. Don't sit there and say it's unfair, point fingers or blame. Because I promise you, me pointing a finger at you, blaming you for something, will that help your business? Will it survive your business? Will it get you into a positive space? What blame does is it takes you back down the Kubler-Ross curve. If you were getting into a positive place and you go and you hit the SARS website and you suddenly realize that the concessions they're offering can't work for you for whatever reason, or you go to the Rupert Fund and it can't work for you for whatever reason, or you go to the Motsepe Fund and it can't work for you for whatever reason, move on immediately. The winner gets up and carries on fighting immediately. Saying it's not fair, it should have, could have, would have been this. All of those words take you back down into a negative place, into the depression space of the Kubler-Ross curve. It's so important that you manage a positive mindset over here. And the best way to stay positive is to always be in action. So sailing a boat in a storm is a really hard thing to do. I promise you, depending on the size of your boat, the one thing you absolutely need is a crew. And that crew needs to be on board. They need to believe in you as the captain of that ship. Because if they don't believe in you, their ability to work effectively with you, their ability to communicate effectively with you, their ability to give you their own ideas of what could be good in the business and what might work and might not work, their ability to concede to negotiation positions that you need in order to help the business get to the other side will be low. You have to have a good plan in action. You need to be sure that the plan you're operating, to the best of your ability, is the best plan that's available given your circumstances. And then you need to act. And more now than ever before, you need to lead from the front. Speak to your team, communicate with your people consistently, every day. Set up WhatsApp groups, set up Zoom sessions, find a means to communicate with them. Use SMS, but you must get messages out to your team. You must be in contact. You must share with them what that battle plan is. The other thing that I think is important is very few of us have been in this position before, where we're up with our backs against the wall. You can only be the best that you can be in the moment. I can promise you, we are all going to make mistakes around what we think is the right way forward over here. Act, see what's working, do more of it. Act, if you see that it doesn't work, stop and then act differently. It's a time for you to be leading from the front in very, very choppy, uncertain seas. When you sail a boat in a wild, gusty storm, the wind blows from one direction and then changes the next direction. If you are in the front leading, you will see which is the best wind to find in order to stabilize the boat on that rough sea so you can sail to a safe destination. I want to end off very quickly by just talking about a few resources that we've created for you. This is a toolkit. And I'd like to place you right there in the middle. You see with those two big Dobermans safeguarding you and lots of tools that you can use in order to safeguard your business. There will be a recording of this webinar made available. There are also other webinars on the same site where this webinar will be made available to you, where we talk about a more detailed business battle plan, landlord SARS negotiations. I talk about Sweat Scale Sell, a book that we wrote and made available on how you build your business into an asset of value. That is a business that one day, and I know it seems far away right now, but if you do through right mind and right action, the right things, you will get to a point where one day, if you built your business correctly, you will be able to sell it for a premium price. There are specific questions you want answered. Please let me know what they are on the website, and it'll talk about further topics that we are going to be covering. Through no fault of yours or mine, this book, Sweat Scale Sell, which talks about how you build your business into an asset of value, it talks about how you position and how you find new clients. It talks about how you create selling systems and selling engines. It talks about how you get the right people to do the right things at the right time in your business. It talks about how you hold everything together in that sense. is now available on Audible. And I'll give a little giveaway secret over here. If somebody refers the book to you and you've never received that book from them before, Audible lets you get the book for free. It's a worthwhile listen because in it you'll find inspiration, but more importantly, you'll find very real practical tactics that you can use to support the establishment, growth, and success of your business, even in the midst of the corona economy storm. Guys, I hope you find that useful. It's just a little bit of guidance. There's a lot of content that I shared with you over there. Again, the recording will be available and it'll be made available on a resource base that has a lot more. There's no reason for you to go out there and try and make this happen on your own. Draw on the people in and around you and get the points of view from many other people out there. But please, don't sit back and say there's nothing I can do, because it's necessity that spurs and drives innovation. And if you act, you might well just see a completely different way of doing things in your own business. And the reason I think it's so important is because truth, your truth, will only ever be found in your action. And with that, I thank you very much for joining us and hope to see you again at future